Welcome to today's episode of Rainer on Leadership. I didn't say hello and welcome because I'm trying to do something different than the way Jonathan Howe did it. Not that I don't love Jonathan Howe, but it's been many, many months. So I just said welcome instead of hello and welcome. I just said welcome to today's episode of Rainer on Leadership, your online home for leadership lessons and advice for the local church. I am Tom Rainer, and I'm joined by Sam Rainer. So you have the CEO and the president of Church Answers, respectively. We are going to be talking about today the difference between a can-do church and a can't-do church. And look at a lot of things that are happening with your church in Bradenton, Florida, Sam, and I see a can-do church in the midst of a neighborhood that most people would say is can't-do. It's to establish. It doesn't have the traffic patterns that of a new place. It's on an older street. Nah, it's doing well. We'll talk about different things like that. But we want to thank Southeastern Seminary. They're committed to help you find the training that you need from anywhere around the world. And just remember, you've probably heard it here before, when you apply at Southeastern Seminary, if you will put in the code that is there, Church Answers, one word, that's answers plural, one word, no space, and they will waive the application fee. Wherever you are in your life's journey, Southeastern is there to get you equipped to disciple and teach others. And when you go to Southeastern, you'll find the seminary is not just about theological education, it's about ministry preparation. Explore degrees, schedule a visit, apply today at sebts.edu. And if you didn't catch that, you can look in the show notes. All right, Sam. Let's talk about the can-do and the can't-do church.
Yeah, this is a post I wrote a while back and thought we'd kind of comment on the article that I wrote at Church Answers. And the reason that I think that it's helpful is because what I see in churches now that are recovering, coming out of COVID, maybe they're not back to where they want to be, but they're on the way. Generally, they have a can-do attitude. They are not looking for excuses to justify what's happening to them. They move beyond the excuses and they're optimistic about the future. And you can do a lot in a church when you have an organizational culture of can do. And it starts with the staff. I've been part of staff meetings where, and I've been guilty as well, where you're the person that always finds reasons why something won't work. And that's so annoying.
It's not only annoying, it's the easy thing to do.
It's so easy.
Everybody can say why something won't work. And I know that my team sometimes gets irritated with me, but when someone will say we have a problem, I say, well, I hope you have a solution.
Don't bring a problem up unless you got a solution or unless you want to brainstorm about a solution. There's no sense in discussing problems unless you're going to actually work to solve them. But I also think that pessimism is part of this as well. Pessimism is a key part of can't do. And I think the audience has heard me say this before, but you can't be a leader and also be a pessimist. It's an impossibility. It's an oxymoron.
Or you can't be a good leader, that's for sure.
Yeah, but there's no such thing as a pessimistic leader because a leader takes people to better places. And if all that you're doing is talking negatively and heaping negativity on your people through pessimism, well, you're not taking them to a better place. You're not leading them. You may have power over them. You may have responsibility for them, but you're not leading them. Leadership requires optimism and an attitude of we can do this.
And so that means that whatever size you are right now is your right size.
Right.
For right now.
Yes. So the can-do church says, we're not so big that we can't do that, or we're not so small that we can't do that. The can-do church says we're the right size for where we are right now, and we can use the people that we have. And so the can-do church doesn't see the size of the church as an obstacle. It doesn't see the budget as an obstacle. It doesn't see the attendance as an obstacle. Those things can be obstacles, of course, and they can be problems, of course. But the can-do church says we can take what we have right now and we can do something with it. And I think that's a biblical principle that God has given you what you need. Use it.
One of the things we hear commonly, Sam, is smaller churches. I'm not going to even define it by size. I'll let the listener or viewer imagine that. Smaller churches will often say, we can't do the things the larger church down the road can do. And so they will see their size as a limitation in comparison to another church.
And I would respond to that. You're right. Yes, there are things that large churches, big churches can do that small churches can't. But what can you do? you know,
Yes.
okay, there's things that large churches can't do really well either, but small churches can do well. So that's the whole idea of church size. We're the right size right now, and we can take what we have and we can move forward. And again, I don't want to sound like a Pollyanna, um, where you don't address the problems. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about an attitude of, well, the promise of greater things in John 14, where you will do the works that I do and you will do even greater works than these. There's always more people to reach. There's always more places to go. It's not a reference to power, by the way. We don't have more power than Christ. It's a reference to scope. There's always more to do. And the can-do church says, okay, church size, where we are, let's get moving.
What is one of the more common things we see when we provide someone a Know Your Community report? They see the numbers of people around them and they are shocked just at the population numbers around them.
Yeah. How many people live within 10 minutes of your church? How many people live within
10-minute drive.
within a 15-minute drive of the church? 10 or 15 minutes. A very common drive time. In fact, we're learning, as we study sociology a little more, we're learning that 15 minutes is critical, not just for the church, but just about anything now. People are.
You and I just read a study on that recently of something I think is a European study, but it has application to America.
Yeah,
as well.
it was a study of Western Europe and how 15 minutes is a big limiting factor for a lot of communities. Meaning you're not going to drive further than that. And I think American culture is similar in that vein. Won't be identical, but it's certainly similar. And the Know Your Community report tells you how many people are in the community, how many people live 10 minutes away, how many people live 15-minute drive from the church. And the good thing about that is most people have no idea how big their community really is. I've seen it with rural and urban settings where we run a Know Your Community report and people come back and they go, I had no idea there was this many people here. There's a lot of people to reach out there.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. How about let's make the segue to the people. You can't do church sees people as can't do church sees people as a problem. You can do church sees people as an opportunity. It's that old cliche that you've heard many times. I would love pastoring if it weren't for people.
Well, not only that, it's the if only syndrome. If only I had this person. If only I had this group. If only I had this generation. Then I could do something. Well, that's not the church you were called to. You got to love the church where it is so that you can lead it to where it needs to be. And God has given you the people that you have. And you may say, well, I don't have a lot of A players. I've got a lot of C and D players. Okay. So, I mean, you've got to use who you have. And the Can Do Church has this attitude of, we have people here. That's an opportunity. And we're going to use them and we're going to put them to work.
By the time this podcast is released, it'll be the middle of April, and you and I are recording it about a month ahead right now. And so we are right in the middle of the NCAA tournament, basketball tournament. And we have not gotten past, as we're recording this, we haven't gotten past we haven't even gotten to the Sweet 16. We know who they are, but they haven't started playing yet. One of the Sweet 16 teams is St. Peter's. And in terms of talent, they shouldn't be on the court with these other teams. And yet they made it to the Sweet 16. They beat Kentucky. I think they beat Murray State after that. And now they're one of the final 16 teams. I don't know if they'll go further or not, but they did. They saw their people, and the coach says, we've got the right people to do the things we need to do right now. That's what a church has. We've got the right people for right now.
Yeah, that's the Can Do Church.
Did it hurt your brackets for Kentucky to lose?
No, I had them actually losing to Murray State in the second round.
Okay, well, your brother and his sons had Kentucky.
Well, he's a big Kentucky fan, yes.
He's a big Kentucky grad too. Hey, don't forget that for our podcast viewers and listeners, we are continuing to offer 4 Steps to Revitalization. It is our foundational product. It is really what has shaped Church Answers in many ways. and we're offering it only for you listeners and viewers at 60% off. You can look at the show notes, or you can write the number 4 steps ROL, and you can get that. There's a lot of great information, far more than we're giving in many of these podcasts. We want to make that available to you. Okay, Sam, talk about the can't do church being stuck in the past.
Yeah, the can't do church lives in nostalgia, lives in the past, but the can do church says that no, now is the time to act in order to get to the future. So this is, again, we're talking about attitudes here, cultural, or organizational culture, tone of the church. I mean, sometimes you can just walk into a church and you can just feel the lack of energy, or you can feel the energy. And
Right.
I think a lot of it just has to do with, does the church truly believe that God is going to take them somewhere? Do they even want to go somewhere? And by somewhere, I just mean anywhere, like anywhere outward. Go to your neighbors, go to the nations, go somewhere, go on a mission trip, go share Jesus with somebody. So the can't do church
Right.
stays stuck in the past and longs for times that they can't get back. The can do church says we can get to where God wants us to go.
In a previous earlier episode, I talked about being in the midst of a consultation. I'm actually in the midst of about 3 right now. And in one of these consultations, in many of the interviews with the members, they were talking about the past. And basically what they wanted was the 1980s to return, 1990s to return, as a denominational church, as a first church. And they really wanted the past to return. And they started using letters to explain their programs. 3 letters, 4 letters. And because I'm not that familiar with this denomination, I said, I have no idea what those letters mean. And one person looked at me and said, well, you know what these are? And she gave me what the acronyms were. And I said, I'm not familiar with those programs. And she just stared at me like, everybody knows what these programs are. Well, first of all, I don't. And then secondly, I would think that almost any guest who comes to your church doesn't care about those programs. That's all the past. And basically what she was saying is, if we do, and she named 4 programs, the church would be fine. Well, won't happen.
It's not. And it is indicative of where a lot of people are. And by the way, this doesn't just apply to the church. It can apply to business and educational systems and the whole like. But you and I, that where we are experienced is with the church. And I think it's a major problem. And okay, so how do you know? I think one of the indicators is do you talk more about the past, or do you talk more about the future as a church? There are going to be times when you reminisce. There's going to be times where you have nostalgia. Yep. There's going to be times where you bring up an old story about something in the past, and it rallies the church and it inspires the church. That's good. Those are all good things. But are you talking more about the past, or are you talking more about the future? And if you're living in the past, well, God's not doing anything back. I mean, God's omnipresent and omnipotent and omniscient, and he's in all places and all times and all things, but you can't rewind.
From a human perspective, he's working now.
Yeah, you can't rewind. So it's time to fast forward and get moving.
Absolutely.
Am I dating myself by using the terms? Am I living in the past by using the terms rewind and fast forward?
No, they're still used. I mean, I know we're not rewinding our VHS tapes, or even before that, the recorder loops that you would put on a reel. We're not doing that, but people know what rewind.
One of my favorite memes is, and one of my favorite videos that I've watched online is, you hand a young person a cassette tape and a pencil and ask them what they're supposed to do. Now Amy's nodding and laughing. You're laughing, Dad. Like, if you give me a pencil and a cassette tape, I know exactly what I'm supposed to do. But the younger generation, they're like, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do with this.
I think I asked you this in a previous one, Sam, but do you remember the Top Gun video game you had?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a very difficult game. It was a very challenging game.
And it was a cartridge. You remember you had to stick the cartridge in to the unit. Well, I was talking to your mom one time. She recently saw the Top Gun movie for the first time. She had not seen it, and so she was reviewing. She was talking about it, and I said, "You remember that was our one of our son, some of our son's favorite game?" And she told me to order it.
Oh, really?
So I ordered. I went to eBay and I got a Top Gun cartridge, and then I said, "Well, we don't have anything to play it on." Well, now we have the console for that Top Gun
You got a
cartridge.
Nintendo
So
Entertainment System, an NES. There's an
that's
acronym for you,
exactly what
NES. Don't you? You don't know
yes,
about the NES?
I'm looking at it right now. You can't see it if you're a viewer on YouTube, but I'm looking at it right now. It came in the mail not too long ago. So next time you and my 4 grandkids, your children, come here, we have one of your favorite video games.
We can
here.
reminisce about the past. We just can't live there.
There we go. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Can do churches conversely believe now is the time to act? They're action oriented, they're present oriented, and they're future oriented. Is that a good way of saying it?
Yeah, they're not sitting around playing old Top Gun games.
Oh, they can do that for family. Well, you'll get to reminisce when you do that. How about can't do churches and money, Sam? What's the attitude there?
Well, the can't do church always believes that they need more. The can do church says we have what we need. And that's the bottom line. There's so many churches that don't move because they don't believe that the budget is adequate. And honestly, where I see this most is, yeah, we're a church of 30 people. We have an annual budget of 200,000, 150,000, and we have $1 million in the bank.
I've seen that too. Yeah.
And it's just sitting there, which one, that's terrible for the kingdom of God. 2, you should have reserves and you should be financially prudent, but you don't need a 10 times factor on your annual budget for reserves. And 2, it's just not good organizational management. Why would I give to the organization that has a ton of money sitting in the bank and they're never going to use it? Why would I give them more money? It just doesn't make sense. And I think that a lot of can't do churches don't even know they're can't do churches with the money because they think that they're being frugal or have good stewardship because we've socked away, $2 million and you're just going, you should have used that money to do kingdom work. You still should use that money to do kingdom work. You need to take it out of the bank and put it to work.
Well, when you look at the early church, the first church in Jerusalem, for a season, had nothing. People started selling their goods and selling land. Ananias and Sapphira, there's another story they sold and kind of lied about part of the sale. But they started off with nothing. And most of the sacrifices that were made to provide income for the church were for the needs of people. It was people who were hurting, people who were hungry. It was not for we got to have a program or we got to have a building or something like this. The Jerusalem church really did not have any money for the types of funds that most of our churches have today. And that church did okay. I mean, you can start looking in Acts 2:41 to 47 and see they got off to a good start. And even though they had some problems, they did okay. And it wasn't a money issue. The money they used was money for human needs more than programmatic needs.
Indeed. So we've got church size. So you're the right size that you need to be, at least for the mission right now. You've got the right people. And you're not asleep, in the past. You're moving towards the future, and you're going to put your resources to work. This is the can-do church. This is the optimistic church. This is the church that believes that God can work now. And unfortunately, yeah, we've got a lot of churches that have an organizational culture of can't do when we need to be leading people to think that they can do.
Exactly. Well, I think you nailed it with this one. Sam was the creator of this content. I think he nailed it. The attitudinal issue is a big issue. And whether you look at our 4 steps of revitalization or you look at a demographic like know your community or even awareness of church issues like know your church, the can-do church is going to reflect a lot of these things that God is not done with us. He's still working, and he has not abandoned us. We're ready to move forward. I love these kind of churches.
Yeah, I certainly want to thank our sponsor, Tyndale, as well. They've been a great
Absolutely.
partner. Want to tell you about Hollywood Heroes, How Your Favorite Movies Reveal God, by Frank Turek and Zach Turek. Good new book. This book, Hollywood Heroes, will change the way you watch movies and transform the way that you understand our ultimate hero, who is Jesus Christ. In Hollywood Heroes, the authors, Dr. Frank Turek and his son, Zach Turek, they highlight a collection of characters from the world's most popular movies to show you how their fictional stories reveal factual truths about God. You're going to see how they assert that our culture's obsession with superheroes reflects our desire for something only God can do, and how only God can make everything right in the end. I think that's a really good thesis there. There is a lot about superheroes right now. Well, why is that? And this book examines that phenomenon. They also offer some practical advice and practical ways for young adults to share the gospel with their peers. So, good book for all ages, especially for those who are perhaps adolescents to young adults. So, give your pastor a copy, or your youth group leader. Your parents who are looking for resources to share the gospel and inspire life lessons with young adults. So they'll look at certain characters like Captain America, Iron Man, Harry Potter, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Batman, Wonder Woman. There's a whole slew of characters that they examine. And here's the thing: you can go to navpress.org/Hollywood Heroes. Use the promo code Rainer, RAINER. That's a dangerous promo code, by the way, because our name gets misspelled
Everybody
so much.
Mispronounced. Is it Rainier?
Yeah.
Is it
I know this
Rainer?
is going to be good. RAINER. You get 30% off your purchase. We'll have the link in the show notes. I'll have all the information in the show notes. But yeah, just make note of that. I just noticed that they used our last name as a promo code, which I'm honored. Like, thank you. Tyndale, thank you, NavPress. Again, navpress.org/Hollywood Heroes. But make sure you spell the name right. RAI.
It's R-A. You remember what your mom
It's like
always used to
rain
say?
outside and then ER.
It comes down from the sky.
Like rain that comes
kind of
down
rain.
from the sky and then ER. Well, thanks again for
Yes.
joining us today here on Rainer on Leadership. Be sure to watch on YouTube or subscribe on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app, wherever you listen. And join us online at churchanswers.com, where we are growing healthy churches together.